Hey, Jason. It's nice to have you at our show, my show actually, of about the systematic businesses, systematizing of the businesses, and because I'm fascinated with businesses, and here you are in this show. So hopefully, we'll learn a lot more from what you do and how you do it. So you could probably do want to do your own quick introduction, who you are, and what your backstory. We can start from that.
Sure. Yeah, great. Thanks for having me on, Alexei. Appreciate it, and happy to talk to you today. So I'm Jason Kumpf. I'm the CRO of Sitcom Global Payments. We're an international payments company. We work with companies like Gucci and LVMH and Delta and Lulu down to smaller SMBs of doing about $1 million a month, right? So, and all the way in between.
Mm,
Global
nice.
companies, US based mainly, but international as well. We have offices around the world too. And we help them expand their audience by selling to more people around the world, right? With different APMs and credit cards. And a lot
Hmm.
of users may
Hmm.
not know what an APM is, but outside of the US, people use wallets. So think of a PayPal wallet that's global, like WeChat, Alipay, Gcash, um, other different payment methods, Pix in Brazil, UPI in
Hmm.
India. So we're a growing, fast-growing company in this space, and I'm the CRO, like I said, and we definitely are trying to be more and more systematized and scale. We've been scaling very quickly, very fast over the last about 10 years now, and
Hmm.
making things systematized is definitely a daily battle because we're growing fast, and we're trying to grow fast and test while we're creating the systems to continue to scale. So yeah,
Hmm.
happy to talk today.
Yeah, which is great. Great. So, how did you end up? I mean, yes, you said that your company has been growing for the past 10 years, which is great.
Yeah.
Because I've been in the commerce industry, so I know something about the payment processors and the like. And
Yeah.
I didn't hear about you back then when I was heavily involved in the e-commerce industry up until 2022. So it's nice that you have pretty interesting names too who are using you, who using you guys. And so, how did you end up growing? How did you end up where you are right now, and how did you include that systematized growth? I mean, how, because I'm probably you started from almost nothing and where you are right now, $1 million a month, which is obviously
Yeah.
significant. So how, what's your story on that?
Yeah. So the clients are doing $1 million a month. We're doing a lot more, right? We're doing a few
Well,
billion
yeah,
in
yeah, yeah.
transactions, right? In transactions. So I'll
Hmm.
start with from the very top. I think everything starts with the top ethos of the company, and then it goes from strategy down to tactics, right? So
Hmm.
I think our
Okay.
number one thing is we're always trying to help the client more, right? We're a
Hmm.
challenger brand. You didn't know about us, but now we have all these big name companies, right? The payments industry is hyper competitive, and it's commoditized, right? It's
Hmm.
mainly
Yep.
if no one, you're not going to go to someone and say, "Do you want to accept Visa, Mastercard?" Are you doing that now? They're doing that now. So why would they switch from that group to us, right? So we have to be hyper customer focused, and it starts from there, right? So adding value and being quick to add that value to the end client and thinking about their problems and how do we help them solve their problems so they don't have to solve them themselves. We're solving them problems and for a better price than they're getting right now. So that's the high level why we're out there, why we think we add value to a client that we're talking to. And then we think, okay, how do we systematize that for them and for us, right? So sometimes we develop a system and it might be manual internally, but for them it's automated and saves them time, and we take on, those chores, those tasks, those actions, and then we try to systematize it as we get two or three clients doing that
Hmm.
that need that same process, right? And we obviously try to only do that for groups that we know, like, okay, this one problem, we'll solve that now. We'll start manually, but then we'll solve it more and more systematized. And then there's an opportunity for, hundreds of more clients similar to that, right? We try to avoid the group that's a one-off, right? We're not in that business.
Could you give
So that's
an
the
example, like what kind of problem you solve like this? Just an example,
Yeah,
like what
sure.
kind of a thing that you actually systematize?
Yeah, so I mean, there's a lot of different things, but I'll give a quick example. Some of it's just how clients, so not only us, but we help the client, we come with a consulting like approach, how they do their own payments. So a lot of companies, you'd be shocked. Even billion-dollar companies, they're not running their operations for payments optimally. So they're
Mm-hmm.
leaving money on the table because they're getting chargebacks, they're getting misreads, they're getting different kind of declines for reasons they shouldn't be getting. And a lot of groups think, oh, it's the payment company, it's this, it's that, it's the underlying APM. And so we,
Mm-hmm.
at the end of the day, it is the payments company in the sense that we want to make sure our operations are as smooth as possible because there's operations in their side and there's operations on our side. And we need to make sure the client's operations are clean and then our operations are clean. So we've done a great job of being maybe one of the cleanest operating payments groups in the industry, in the space we're in. So we've reduced that risk down to zero, that friction down to zero. And now
Mm-hmm.
we help them reduce theirs as much as possible. So we have programs by industry and by solution that the client wants to solve. So let's say you're an online e-commerce company selling to the youth generation in the US versus an online education company selling to older adults, right? There'll be two different paths.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say, if
Yep.
you're doing this, if you're doing A, then you need to have these systems in place. And we do a review of their business. So we have that systematized where it's basically a checklist. Hey, are you doing these things? You're not doing this. Yes, you're doing that. So out of 10 things, they're probably doing 6, but they're not doing the other 4. Maybe one of the other 4s they can't do because of their business model for whatever instance. And then we help give them a way for them to move from not doing those things to doing those things. And sometimes we do those things for them. So that's part of a system that we would use, just kind of like having that deep understanding in that not only vertical, but sub-vertical, right? So we understand their business almost more than they do because we've probably worked with dozens of clients similar to them in that space,
Mm-hmm.
and we've taken
Mm-hmm.
all the learning lessons from those groups and kind of put into a formula for that company to now follow as much as they want, right? Hopefully it's close to 90% because these things work pretty well for them, right? There might be some things that they need to do special for themselves, but we
Mm-hmm.
can go through that. So that's a type of system we have on almost on a benefit to the client. Other systems we have are just how we onboard clients, how we work with clients. So our onboarding is super fast
Mm-hmm.
because of the
Mm-hmm.
systems and processes we've put in place. We can take a client, identify what subvertical they're in, what their compliance will look like. In global payments, we have 100 plus, almost 150 plus different payment methods we work with. So Alipay has different requirements than WeChat Pay, has different requirements than Pix, has different requirements for Visa acceptance in the US. So there's a bunch of different things they have to do or be doing or
Mm-hmm.
information they have to give us. So we have a system saying, if you're doing these things, then we need these things. And it goes down like a waterfall system where they know exactly what they need to do. So the onboarding is
Mm-hmm.
hopefully a one streamlined process and there's not a lot of back and forth. So that's a nice system
Mm-hmm.
for us because we don't have to go back and forth. And also it's a better experience for the client. They know what they're getting into right away up front, right? We have the list, we have the
Mm-hmm.
process
Yep.
well documented out, right? So
Yeah.
that's how
Makes
we
it
do that.
simpler, right?
It
Yeah,
makes
makes
it
it simpler, which actually makes it a good transition to the second question that I wanted to ask you is how do you deal with the risks for your business? Because I mean, yes, you have hundreds of dozens of clients, right? You onboard some, you operating some, and then some of them are complaining, obviously, or some have some kind of hiccup. So how do you manage the risks which are occurring on the operational side or
yeah.
even on the onboarding side?
Yeah. So there's a lot of risks in payments, right? Because we're the one
Oh
that's
yeah, exactly.
holding the funds, right? It's not a typical, we're not like a marketing consulting company where there's some, we have like a lot more. So we have, a smart, sizable compliance and risk team that obviously has, processes solve a lot of things, right? In the world, processes solve things. Just to give you an example, people were dying hundreds of years ago by, close to 40, they didn't live beyond 50, and the simple process of people being hygienic and bathing, washing their hands,
Hmm.
things like
Yeah.
that alone, they're saying like that increased the lifespan by almost 50% more, right? So one process can have a lot of impact. So we try to find these processes and these steps that maybe other groups are doing, maybe not all doing. So and we've invented our own, and we'll bring these processes to the to the onboarding, to the transaction monitoring, to the reviewing of the clients, and making sure we're always understanding the risk, because it's not about making things zero risk in any business, right? If you zero risk, you don't have
Mm-hmm.
business. There's always going to be some risks. So
Yeah.
trying to mitigate
Yeah.
those risks, foresee those risks, and understand. In payments, if we're working with a higher risk client, like a travel client, people don't think, oh, the travel is risky. It is actually, right? There's a lot of issues there. So we'll have a higher reserve rate for maybe a travel group, right? So that travel group, we're keeping 10% as a buffer for that client so that there's exceptionally high chargeback rates, et cetera. Then we
Mm-hmm.
have that money as a padding, and we're not getting hit with that, chargeback rate, right? So we're
Mm-hmm.
working with the client, and we explain it to the client, hey, we'll help you get your processes that the reserve rate goes down lower and lower and lower. But if you're at a level, C level, then we're going to need these things to mitigate our risk, right? And they usually understand
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
that, and then they
Mm-hmm.
appreciate the fact that we'll come in and help them reduce, improve their risk processes from a C to an A, and then maybe that hold rate, that hold reservation hold, goes down as well. So it's a benefit to everyone. And I
Mm-hmm.
think a lot of
Mm-hmm.
payment groups don't do that, right? It's just like they try to make it overly simplified. So there's a danger of oversimplifying and over systematizing everything, where you don't have that. It's a person at that other company, right? And they're going to make
Yeah.
different
Yeah.
decisions, and you want to have it where you're systematized like to 90% if you can, but there's some element of explaining why you need to do things, working with the client to make sure that they're using the best processes that they can, right, for their
Yeah.
business, for their industry, for their risk.
Because I mean, exactly, they are the businesses as well, right? You're the business, they're
Yeah,
the business,
yeah,
and businesses operate not in vacuum; they operate by people, and
yeah,
and
yeah,
people do make mistakes, and people do have some expectations, and that's why obviously you need to treat it like not just a machine. You need to treat it a little bit machine with a certain expectations that you can put forth with a specific systematizing approach, because if it's
100%.
all on a discretion, obviously it will be complete chaos, right? But if it's complete 100% automation, it probably will be a different type of chaos, because as soon as you disturb
Yeah,
that system, it will just fall apart. So it needs to have
100%.
both ways, right?
Yeah.
Which leads me to, how do you measure your success? I mean, how do you measure that the any adjustment that you do, they're leading to success? Is it on the budget level, or on creating systems level, or on, how do you measure, basically, how do you measure that the success is achieved in helping the clients
Yeah. So we have
and
deep
yourself
analysis.
too at the same time,
Yeah,
right?
so we have deep
Yeah.
analysis on ourselves, right? How our business is being run, how our business is being managed, and we have people, X Visa, X WorldPay, X Rapid, folks like a lot of good companies with a lot of analytical background, and most of the people we have on the team are quite analytical, even in their day-to-day job, right? So if they're a salesperson, customer service person, we try to hire analytical people that are always trying to like figure things out and make things better for the company. So
Mm-hmm.
again, like a
Mm-hmm.
top level, how do you operate? Who do you hire? What kind of personalities and ethos do you have with the company? So analyzing, measuring and analyzing everything that we're doing is number one important, right? Then obviously we have a lot of dashboards and reports of how our business is running, but also we have that on per client, right? So we know if a client sales drops, if there's a increase in returns or increase in authorization rate, et cetera. We're watching that by payment processor, and we're working with the client. Say, hey, this different wallet, it seems like you've reduced your success rate with that wallet or with this country, and let's review what's been happening. Did you guys make a change? Oh yeah, we made a change to the website, and we changed this. Like, okay, well, because they needed to do something, maybe. So, well, maybe you need to modify that change to make sure that your success rate goes up, and we'll walk them through that. But a lot of measuring on every second, right? We get reports
Mm-hmm.
of different alerts of how the clients are doing and how the company is doing in general. Measuring is a
Mm-hmm.
is a is a necessity. And payments, I think most groups are. We're probably one of the better groups at measuring everything, but in a lot of general businesses, a lot of our clients that we see, they're not as analytical, right? And we help them be more analytical.
Mm-hmm. Which is great, yeah, because I mean, as I
Yeah,
said, I worked a lot with the e-commerce industry, and the merchants coming in, oh man, there are a lot of them are, they are marketing people. They know how to market, but
yeah,
they don't know the behind the scene things sometimes that has to happen, and so they are not analytical, as you said it.
yeah,
So you really need to teach them, you need to push them in a certain way, and that is why systematized approach is like way to go
yeah,
anyway. And obviously, again, for them to see the value of your value, how you're providing that value, you need to have a way to report that back to them, right? So it's
Right.
not just
Yeah.
you're just taking money from them, but you do provide value. So
Yeah.
that was one of the questions about it, like why, like how do you provide, basically how do you measure success for your
Yeah.
business or even for your customers, right? Because again, it's important,
And even
because if
before
they
they
feel
become a
better, they feel better that way.
Yeah. And even before they become a customer, we do a consultative analysis on their current business. And
Great.
we only
Yeah.
want to work with them if we can add value, which usually means increasing their revenue and lowering their costs. Why would you come to us if we can't increase your revenue or lower your costs, right? And we want you to, go and tell other people like, hey, we're working with Sitcom. They increased our revenue, lowered our costs with their processes and with their product. So we do that up front, and then we got to measure that and prove that happened, right? And that always happens. We
Okay.
have a great retention
Yeah.
rate. We get a lot of referrals from existing clients because they're so happy about the success, right? But that's super
Yeah.
important, and to measure that ongoing, because sometimes something happens, they miss something, and things change, and we're the ones that are again advising them, right? We look at it, we're a payment platform enabling them to do more payments, but we're really a bit more than that in terms of like advising them how to maximize and optimize that, right?
Yeah, sounds good. Yeah, sounds great. I mean, that's again what would be expected, because it's not like, especially as you said, it's all commoditized. The payment processor right now,
Yeah.
in this world, that sometimes what these CFOs do of these companies, they just look at it like, okay, I have company X, company Y, company Z, and then who is doing the better offer for me in terms of the rates, and that's all they do. So it's
Yeah.
kind of like you probably need to bring a little bit more than here's just a better rate. There is better rate and this, right? And other things that you actually show them, that's how you doing the value add, instead of
Yeah.
just processing money,
Yeah.
because it's not just some kind of a register. It's
100
just taking the money, right?
100%. And we have a process of helping them analyze their business. And usually we can see, besides the reduction in cost they have, which is an easy win, is that increase in sales, right? We launched some companies, we convinced them to launch different payment methods that they were somewhat skeptical on, right? Some buy now, pay later, some other things. And we would do maybe a region, right? So we launch in, one geography or something with one franchise or unit of the company, and then they grew by like 60% in 3 months. And then the other groups that were skeptical, they're like, oh, that other group's growing, let us do that. And then they go back like, how do we, how do we find out about this? And so they love us for that, because it's easy to switch on different payment methods. So we offer a testing facility too. So someone comes to us for one solution, and most groups don't understand payments like we understand. They're like, hey, I want to sell more stuff, I need to accept card, and I want to offer like PayPal or something. They don't know all the other things. And there's new solutions coming out. There's new wallets coming out every week almost, right? There's new buy now, pay laters. There's new different
Yeah.
wallets. And now
Yeah.
Gen A is doing this cool new thing. Someone who's selling cowboy hats or, shoes online may not know all that stuff. So we're like, hey, we just launched this. You want to try this? It's no cost to you to add this to your system now, and then increase that rate. And I think that's the big advantage we do versus other groups that, they're just set it and they forget it, and the client's humming along, and that's it. And they're not really educating them on how to operate better, right? And we view the wallets, like not accepting wallets in today's world is crazy. It's over now 50% of all transactions in the world are done through wallets, not just through cards. And especially in the
Yeah.
US, people don't really understand that, as a default. But now that's, we're helping, we're one of the first groups that offer those. So we've been educating people about that for a long time, right? So that's, and I think they
Yeah.
appreciate that.
Sounds good. Sounds great. And which, speaking about wallets, I mean, wallets, it has nothing to do with your wallets. I just want to switch gears just a little bit on a different note. I wonder how you, let's say, if you would apply the same systematized approach, but to the investment world. Let's say, because I mean, your company, obviously, you do the transactions of money just floating, as you said, billions of dollars going in and out. I'm not sure again what you do with the actual money behind the scene. If you do it, like, because I mean, you do probably your own investments into your own team, right? To improve the team performance, improve
Yeah.
the whatever is necessary from the IT perspective to manage the transactions, because again, that sheer volume obviously requires that.
Yeah.
So how do you systematize your investment from your perspective? And if you systematize it, what if, let's say, you approach it in similar way that you approach your business? How would you do that?
Yeah, so I'll start with the business first, and I'll kind of do my own maybe personal philosophy, which is probably more
Mm-hmm.
on point there. So the system for the company, we're basically reinvesting and adding new technology, growing it. It's payments is still very fast and evolving, and you want to be on the cutting edge of that, right? So that's our number
Mm-hmm.
one investment is back into our solutions and products, and of course, obviously the people that working with that and making sure they understand things and can explain these to the customers the right way too. So that's the biggest investment. And then we have some cash management investment. Obviously, interest rates are high right now, so that's helpful.
Mm-hmm.
But the main thing is really just growing the company. Like we can make a lot more by reinvesting those profits back into the business and growing an extra X versus maybe a typical investment out there, right? And is so now,
Mm-hmm.
and I would want to invest in a company like that because like I'm now me as a person, right? I have passive investments in equity and stuff like that. So I like to find companies that are, hey, you're reinvesting your profits in your business to grow it. And I think that's, the Amazon story. They reinvested their profits for like 20 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
Before they actually posted a profit and then they became the dominant force after that time, right? So that's kind of like
Yep.
our same mentality is like, I'm not saying we're going to be the next Amazon, but that's the process we're on and that's the system we're
Mm-hmm.
on. Reinvest, produce better and better results, and that's going to be beneficial. We obviously have shareholders, we VC backed, and we have investment and stuff like that. So that's kind of the angle we do.
Mm-hmm.
For myself as an individual, I'm looking for companies like that. I have probably maybe three buckets I'm looking in. So some basic, ETFs, obviously global ETFs, kind of set it and forget it, easier ones. Some more like, bet on founder deals where I'm like, hey, this group is going to reinvest. They're going to keep doing it. So the same methodology that we have at Sitcom. And then I'd say the other is more speculative where, looking at different trading platforms, looking at different trading solutions that, might be new, might be interesting, might be a little bit engaging. And I'll maybe parse that 30% out five, to the most highly spec, kind of investments. Like I've got some cryptocurrency. I've had that for a while. To maybe some options, some buy long short stuff, and then some other systems there,
Mm-hmm.
and kind of looking for maybe trend analysis and stuff like that in that portion of my portfolio.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. Interesting. Yeah. Interesting. So, what is your biggest challenge then in this, like an investment type of world? What would you consider the something that you're either struggling or not really satisfied with? I'm just curious.
Yeah. I mean, obviously, FOMO investing is very, very real, right? So I'm like, oh, I should have bought more Nvidia. I should have bought more. I should have held my Bitcoin, stuff like that. So I think the number one thing is yourself. I think in life, the number one everyone has, the number one challenge they have is themselves, right? So
Mm-hmm.
managing their
Yeah, that's true.
emotions, managing like, I sold, I bought in Tesla early. I sold early because I just couldn't fathom the growth. Same with Bitcoin. So it's learning like these things do happen and to know to just manage yourself is number one, right? I think that's the biggest problem. And
Mm-hmm.
then I think it's time and energy to research what's out there, what's available. I think that's the other element is that I'm working, long hours, basically 996 hours. So there's not a lot of time to, review my investments like I did maybe 10,
Mm-hmm.
15 years ago when I had a bit more time and I was actually day
Mm-hmm.
trading, I was options trading, stuff like that. So, I don't have that time anymore. So it's hard to find systems. So I rely on, some of my friends have different trading systems or platforms they're using, or, there's different ideas that have been working. I think the other problem is whatever worked maybe a year ago may not be working in investing today, right? Like private equity, 20 years ago was making double digit 20+% returns. Now it's lucky to do, like 8%, something like that, right? So I think
Mm-hmm.
they're
Mm-hmm.
different. It doesn't last forever. So you kind of have to always be on top of that, right? So I think working with
Yeah.
people that are professionals in the space, you have to find groups that you trust. You say, okay, they're going to stay on top of this stuff and they're going to have the right education, right advice, and right systems to find those new things, right? I think now with AI
Mm-hmm.
and the different things, it's a little bit easier, but even AI you can't fully trust. You've got to like have multiple AIs that you can review and research with, right? So that's probably the biggest
Yeah.
problem is. overload
Yeah.
of information and identifying which one's the best and not getting overwhelmed and just saying, I'm just going to do these three things. I'm going to work with these three groups and, I'll review what they're doing and stuff like that. But, not
Hmm.
going too spread out, which I've done in the past too.
Yeah. Sounds interesting. I mean, obviously, on my side, my audience is they're all about systematized trading, right? So that's pretty much what they do, and that's what we teach. So again,
Yeah.
it's not I'm trying to advertise it for myself. It's just
Yeah.
what we actually do, and interesting that like a different perspective because you're not our student, obviously, so you have no
Yeah.
idea yet
Yeah.
what we do, and it's interesting to see how people react to like hype out there because. That's the reason why I was asking about your all the systematized part in
Yeah.
your business and because you do need to systematize your investments in pretty much the same similar fashion, right? Because otherwise it will be either too premature, you will get out like your Tesla case,
Yeah.
or like Bitcoin right now, it's going up and down. So it went 120 something K and now I think it's like 109K. So it's up and down. So you need to know when to get in, when to get out, when
Yeah.
to hold on, well not to hold on, right?
Yeah.
So but same is applicable to as you said for private equities or anything like that, like real estate. It's same again. They have their own flows and you need to know have certain rules when to do something and when not to do something because that's all about the systematizing which that's why I started this podcast basically. So I wanted to kind of learn what others are doing and what kind of struggles they also have and what kind of success they also have. Because I mean,
Yeah.
I have my own, our students have their own struggles, and everyone else has the struggles and again some success stories. So which is the
Yeah.
fascinating part. So on this note, I think I would probably wrap it up for today because it's been great and it's very fascinating. Especially, it's interesting that again, that different businesses have different ideas of how to manage customers, how to manage the struggles, and that's the part that really fascinates me. That's why I
Yeah.
wanted to start this podcast.
Yeah. 100%. I
So
think it's great.
yeah,
I think if I
yeah,
can
go ahead.
add, like, I agree with your systems approach, right? I think even thinking in systems, right? When people get exposed to the world, it's good to have systems that you can think things through and models, mental models that you can use too. And I think the businesses that create the systems and follow the systems and have systems that can evolve do better. And
Hmm.
just like people, right? Like I would say religion is a system, right? And it helps people, a lot of people
True.
anyway, or
Yeah.
some, or philosophies can be systems that people use for the life. So you definitely want to use that for your business. You want to use that for your relationships, right? If you're married, you want to have a system, be
Hmm.
nice, do these things, bring the flowers. If you have those
Yeah.
systematized, it's not being robotic, it's being thoughtful enough to think forward, like what's going to be the best result for myself and whoever else is in this system, right? And you agree
Hmm.
on like this is the best system to follow because we both like the outcomes that the systems produce. So I
Yeah.
think people
So
that don't
true.
have a
So
system, and
true.
I think when I failed in investing personally, I didn't have a system, right? I was like, oh, I'm just doing
Hmm.
this and speculating, and I didn't have a process, a plan, and a system that I'm like, okay, let me test this system and see how it goes. And when I started doing that a little bit more, then things got better, and at least I knew why I won or I lost. It wasn't like I just got lucky, right? You had a
Yeah.
plan. So I
Exactly.
like what you're doing
Yeah.
on that, where you have a hypothesis, you have a system, you can test the system and see how that goes, right? So
Yeah.
and then you have
Yeah.
parameters, right? That's important.
Yeah. So true. So true. You're preaching to the choir
Yeah,
in this case.
yeah,
So, Jason, thank you very much for coming to this episode. I very enjoyed it. It was very fascinating. So, it's been great. So, thank you very much for
yeah.
coming.
All right. Thanks, Alexei. Enjoy. Take care. Have a good one.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Appreciate
Bye.
it. Bye bye.